Uncovering the Mysteries of Japan's Female Samurai, The Secret Samurai. Part 1, Introduction, The Secret Samurai. When you hear the word samurai, the image is almost automatic. Armored men on horseback, swords flashing, banners flying, a world of discipline, loyalty, and endless war. But there is another picture, buried in half-forgotten chronicles and whispered in local legends. On the battlefield, in the shadow of burning gates, a woman steps forward. Her weapon is the naginata, a long curved blade at the end of a pole. Her hair is bound, her armor plain but practical. Her stance says what her voice does not: I will not yield. These were the Onna-bugeisha, the female warriors of the samurai class. They defended homes and castles, commanded small units, and left behind stories that blurred the line between fact and legend. They were not the majority. They were not always recorded in detail. But when they appeared, they burned themselves into memory. This is their story, the story of the secret samurai. Part 2, Who were the female samurai? To understand them, we must step back. The samurai world was never simply an army of men. It was a family system. Men rode to war, but women managed estates, maintained alliances, and in times of crisis, took up arms. From the late Heian period in the 12th century, through the centuries of civil war known as Sengoku, and into the early modern Edo period, sources mention women trained in weapons. Their role was not ceremonial. They were expected to act when danger arrived. The naginata became their signature weapon. With its reach and cutting power, it allowed a smaller fighter to hold distance, to turn corridors into kill zones, and to resist larger, stronger opponents. But the naginata was only part of the story. Women also used bows, firing from castle walls. They used short swords when the fight closed to the doorway. Training was not theatrical. It was practical. It was survival. A female samurai was not a knight in shining romance. She was the final defense of a household. And sometimes, she was more than defense, she was the spark of counterattack. Part 3, Legendary figures' names survive because memory refuses to let them go. Tomoe Gozen, the archetype. She fought in the Genpei War of the late 12th century, a conflict that tore Japan between the Taira and Minamoto clans. The tale of the Heike describes her as a warrior worth 1,000, beautiful, strong, and deadly with bow and sword. Whether every detail is literal or not, the image of Tomoe became a symbol of female valor. She was remembered not as an exception, but as a warrior. Hangaku Gozen, the unbroken bow. In the early 13th century, she commanded defenders in Echigo. Wounded but unyielding, she fought until capture. Even her enemies praised her courage. In a world where victors wrote history, the fact that her bravery was recorded at all shows how deeply it impressed. Kaihime, the wall that would not fall. During Hideyoshi's siege of Oshi Castle in 1590, she rallied the garrison. Her presence stiffened resistance. Stories say enemy soldiers themselves called her the model of a female warrior. Nakano Takeko, the red banner at the end of an era. In 1868, as the age of the samurai collapsed, she led a unit of women carrying naginata. They fought under a crimson flag, and she fell in battle, asking to be buried on temple ground. Her march closed the circle, proving that even at the final sunset of the samurai, women still bore arms. These names are the brightest sparks. But countless others existed, recorded only in temple registers, family scrolls, or fragments of oral memory. Part 4, Weapons, Training, and the Art of Defense. The naginata dominates the image, but behind the blade was structure. Households drilled responses to alarms. Close the gates. Assign posts. Ready arrows. Prepare water against fire. Women knew where to stand and how to move. The naginata could hook ladders, sweep multiple attackers, and exploit distance. From a stairwell or veranda, it became an equalizer. The bow expanded this logic. From a parapet, a determined defender could scatter climbing troops. Arrows bought minutes, and in siege warfare, minutes were life. Training was practical: how to breathe in armor, how to hold form in confined space, how to fight not for spectacle but for survival. This was the art of defense, where women were not ornaments but the backbone of resistance. Part 5, Myth, Memory, and Misconceptions. Why then are they so little known? Because history is a filter. War chronicles praised generals and lords. Plays and epics favored dramatic speeches. Confucian moralists in later centuries emphasized obedience and domestic virtue. Female warriors became exceptions in the record, curiosities rather than examples. Tomoe's deeds were romanticized, Hangaku's defiance compressed into a paragraph, Nakano's death remembered but isolated. Western readers sometimes imagine a parallel order of female knights. That was not the case. Female samurai were not numerous, but they were real. Their rarity is exactly why their memory is sharp. Another misconception, that all such stories are legend. But fragments align. Family documents mention women who fought. Temple notes list casualties with female names. Archaeology finds arrowheads, scorched floors, and women's ornaments in siege layers. Myth stretches details, but it stretches from a backbone of truth. The secret samurai are hidden not because they never existed, but because the lens of history dimmed them. Part 6, Ending, the legacy of the secret samurai. So what remains when the dust clears? 4 names stand like pillars: Tomoe Gozen, Hangaku Gozen, Kaihime, and Nakano Takeko. Around them swirl the unnamed thousands, women who held doors, who carried water under arrows, who braced gates with their own bodies. Their courage refined the definition of samurai. It showed that loyalty and valor were not limited by gender. It complicated the picture of a rigid society, revealing how necessity bends rules. Today, the naginata lives on in martial arts dojos, in school clubs, and in cultural festivals. Paintings, novels, and films keep the figures alive, sometimes romanticized, sometimes researched, but always compelling. The female samurai remind us of a truth, that courage has many faces, and history has many voices. They were rare. They were remarkable. They were the secret samurai. Thank you for watching. Which story surprised you the most? Tell me in the comments, and help keep their memory alive.